right, Denver coaching search. I was told this week, listen, they've interviewed Sean Payton twice, and they like Sean Payton. But there's things to consider here. Draft capital. Russell Wilson's really expensive. O-line's a bit of a rebuild. What are you hearing on the Denver coaching search?
Yeah, the Denver deal is interesting because they were first out of the gates, and everyone thought that, okay, new ownership, they're going to make some plays. They're going to go and do this thing. They're taking their sweet time. The name that emerged this week was David Shaw from Stanford. Let me explain. Greg Penner, the new owner of the Denver Broncos, has a Stanford MBA. Condoleezza Rice, who is the former Secretary of State, obviously is involved in this new Denver ownership group. She also is a Stanford alum. David Shaw would be a steady hand. I've also been told, back up a second. This thing might take a bit. And there are no slam dunks. The Shaw thing makes a lot of sense when you connect the dots like your Russell Crowe and Beautiful Mind. But this is by no means David Shaw's job to lose at this point. They're taking their time. Sean Payton is still in the mix. D'Amico Ryans is still in the mix. Dan Quinn is still in the mix. David Shaw is still in the mix. But I would be surprised if Denver was the first one out of the gate out of these 5 coaching vacancies, which still have not been filled.
Aaron Rodgers, I feel like there were years in this relationship where Green Bay was desperate. I don't think they are now. What are you hearing?
It's interesting because when you're coming off 2 MVP awards in a row and you've got all the leverage and you've got the contract up in the balance, you're at a different point than when your team misses the playoffs and there's 7 other teams in the NFC. And there's talk that maybe Rodgers could be a movable piece. Now, look, at the end of the day, he's going to have a huge say in that. And I look at the other teams, and the teams that keep popping up are you see the Vegas connection with Devontae Adams and how they might have a void at quarterback. The Jets, how they have all that young talent, and even Rodgers was on McAfee, and he was listing some of those names. The truth of the matter is the Green Bay Packers did miss the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers, and his salary is a huge suck on this team, whether he's on the squad or not. I, to this day, would be very surprised if by week 1, we're talking about a different quarterback 1 for the Green Bay Packers. But I do think there's a lot more validity to it this year than there was a year ago.
Mike McCarthy, Jerry, I was talking to Matt Mosley yesterday, and he said Jerry can kind of disappear for about 2 to 3 weeks after a season to let everybody that, Dak can take a beating a little bit. McCarthy can take a beating. Jerry's not going to defend him. He wouldn't go on his radio show. Any chance he could be replaced?
Jerry's come out every single step of the way and has given Mike McCarthy a vote of confidence. And, they've won 12 games the last 2 years. They've advanced from the wild card round to the divisional round. The interesting thing is those 2 coordinators who are very highly respected around the league. Dan Quinn is interviewing for head coaching jobs. He's in Arizona today, and he's up for that gig. He's also up for several others. Then Kellen Moore interviewed for the Carolina job yesterday. So you have these 2 coordinators who are viewed as rising stars, and Mike McCarthy is sort of the CEO. The only way I could see Jerry at this point pulling the plug on McCarthy is if there was some sort of decision at the top to say, we got to keep Dan Quinn. And the only way to keep Dan Quinn is to make him the head man. Colin, from everything I hear, Mike McCarthy is safe. They're not looking to make a trade for Sean Payton with the Saints at the moment. And it looks like it's going to be McCarthy and potentially another coordinator next year if Dan Quinn gets one of these jobs. But there's a good chance that with only 5 seats available, that Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore are right back, and so is Dak. And, hey, let's try to get to our first NFC Championship game in 28 years next season. So
I thought it was interesting that from respected reporters, there is Mike Silver, that Brock Purdy's the guy next year. And I think you had heard this and reported that there were just concerns about accuracy, Trey Lance, scarcity of games he'd played. He was really a prospect and a rough around the edges prospect. He just hadn't played much football. So the story comes out, kind of Brock Purdy's the guy. Yesterday, J-Mac brought up something that was interesting. He said, what if you come back with Purdy and Garoppolo? One, you're paying nothing. One, you're getting kind of an injury discount. What do you make of the Purdy situation? Is it surprising? What's being said behind the walls?
Well, it's fascinating because right now everyone in San Francisco, and Silver's got his sources and they're great. Everyone in San Francisco talking to me is like, we're not there yet. We're not even going there yet. Why would you dare go that way? Let's just focus on 1 week at a time. And it's a nice thing to live in the present and live in that pocket because everything's going great. Purdy's 7-0 as a starter. Purdy can't miss. Purdy, even on that play at the end of the first half where he threw it out of bounds, like, 1 second remained.
Yeah.
And it was almost like the gods were working with him to make sure that wasn't a rookie mistake. But this is going to be a really interesting decision in the offseason. Now, Jimmy's a pure free agent. That's going to be one deal. Trey Lance is going into year number 3 as a quarterback. He's on his rookie deal. And Purdy's going to be year 2 at a salary that is the smallest salary of any quarterback in the NFL who's going to be a QB1. So they have the luxury. They can keep Lance and Purdy. And if they want, they can even bring in a veteran third string if they want to have that veteran guy that's there. I would imagine it's going to be a true battle in training camp. And I say that in quotes, but if Purdy keeps on winning, man, hey, look, I'll say this. The Patriots, they were paying Drew Bledsoe the most money in the NFL in the early 2000s. Brady won them a Super Bowl. Bledsoe was on the bench. Sometimes it's just, hey, the salaries you have to throw out the door.
Yeah.
And in this case, Trey Lance, he's still in his rookie deal. It's not like he's making $100 million.
Right. All right, let's talk Bengals Chiefs. To you, what's the secret sauce to Cincinnati's success? I mean, obviously Burrow's a special player, but what's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is that defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. I feel like I become a flag bearer for certain assistant coaches during these postseason runs. There are 5 vacancies for head coaching jobs, and there are over 25 different men who've interviewed for them. Lou Anarumo, who has been the defensive coordinator in Cincinnati the past 2 years, has gotten zero head coaching interviews this entire season. And it's one of those deals where they all just lean into it. They're like, yeah, he's disrespected just like the rest of us. You go around this team, whether it's Trey Hendrickson not getting a deal from the Saints that's equal to what the Bengals offered, or Eli Apple discarded by multiple teams, Von Bell discarded by a team. These are a bunch of guys who feel on defense that they have been disrespected and dismissed. And their defensive coordinator is one of these masterminds. He's 3-0 against Mahomes. He's 1-0 against Josh Allen. And when you come out of halftime, you don't score on the Cincinnati Bengals. It's just not what happens. The Bills
Right.
didn't do it. The Chiefs haven't done it. And I think they're the best in the league at adjustments defensively. So let Burrow, Chase, and Higgins get all the headlines. Let them do all that stuff. They have a salty, they have a tough, and they've got an East Coast defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, who, Colin, I know you're a West Coast guy, Seattle, the whole deal. This guy's from Staten Island, New York.
Yeah.
It's a different breed of dude.
I like Staten Island. Tough people from Staten Island. Don't mess around on Staten Island. You know that, J-Mac. Finally, I said Mahomes at 80% is the second best player this weekend because I think one of his many great qualities, play extension, is he's really in a unique all-time class of just extending. It's not even scrambling. It's just extending a play and eyes downfield. He really doesn't run that much. Where are we at his injury? What's the latest?
Okay, so Andy Reid, as we're on this, Andy Reid had a press conference, said Mahomes is going to practice. So I'm not a Vegas guy by trade, but let me tell you something. That line started off with the Chiefs being favored. Then when the ankle injury became more evident, the Bengals were a 3-point favorite. With the mere news that Mahomes is able to practice, I would imagine the Chiefs would be favored again by tomorrow morning. That's how much the ankle plays into things. Now, truth of the matter is, Mahomes at 80% is better than 99% of the quarterbacks, but Burrow at 100% is pretty scary too.
Yeah.
Let's see how he practices. Let's see how he moves around in the facility. In recent years, Dwight Freeney's ankle, Gronk's ankle, these have been really important storylines going into big games. I don't think there's a bigger storyline on Sunday than Patrick Mahomes' ankle and what version we get. Chad Henne will be ready. He always is. But if you can have Mahomes out there and him better than 70%, well, then watch out. Here we go.
Yeah. Peter Schrager, by the way, a new weekly podcast, The Season with Peter Schrager. He's got a new microphone there. He's cranking.
Can we get you on, Colin? Is that allowed? Can I have you as a guest?
Yeah, I'd love to be a guest. Absolutely. That whole podcast industry is something these days. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.